I'm not the best at remembering specific dates and details. Just ask my wife. But if I recall, I was 10 years old on the Christmas Eve of '95 when I received my favorite gift. I grew up in a Mennonite family, a denomination that revolves more on faith, simplicity, and community. I guess you could say we had simpler lives than most, but please know that we were not Amish. My dad was a full-time nurse and was probably on call every other week, and my mother ran her own bakery business out of our house. They poured a lot into their work and were awake before the crack of dawn to prepare for the day. My brother and I both grew up with that same hardworking mentality, helping run the front of the bakery as kids and having after-school jobs in high school. I feel like I could tell many stories about my dad, but in so many ways I can think of him being just like Joseph. In my eyes as a child, he was a very humble man who cared deeply about obeying God and showing love to everyone, his family, friends, his patients, in any way that he could. Even though Joseph was not the biological father of Jesus, I've always believed that there was a close relationship between them. And Jesus grew up as any other kid, discovering things he loved to do with his father. For me, my dad passed down three things to me that he absolutely loved: God, music, and baseball. I played baseball every year that I could and all the way up through high school, and my dad always made sure he could come to my games. Now, we were blessed to be more financially stable than most people, but we were also taught to be wise spenders, not being flashy with our money and remembering our priorities when it came to money. So most of the time, my equipment was not all the new high-end name brands, but more store brand that was reliable and got the job done. Although the one thing that I didn't have at the time was a bat that could be used for Little League. But for me, it didn't seem to be a big issue because I had plenty of friends on the team that let me borrow their bat. So we never really had to worry about having one of my own until the Christmas Eve of '95. After being in the house all day, helping mom and having to deal with the irresistible aromas of breads and cookies and numerous other sugar-covered creations that you could think of, she closed up the shop and my dad got home from his shift around the same time. If I recall, we had a nice relaxing dinner together, sang some songs, and then my brother and I were allowed to open up a gift or two that evening. Now, I don't believe my parents ever wrapped it, but they instead told me to close my eyes and hold out my hands. So that's what I did, and after what seemed like an eternity, my dad placed an object on my hands, one feeling the coolness of metal, and the other the warmth of a firm rubber grip. And at that moment, I felt my eyes light up even before I opened them. And it was a brand new Easton baseball bat. Most of the barrel was a standard gray metal, but the font and the grip were an emerald green color that was really beautiful. For me, the next season of Little League could not come soon enough, as I wanted to take a swing with my new bat. Before that time came, though, I took the bat almost everywhere I went. And when the new season came around, I knew I had to get it in my baseball pictures. If you knew me as a kid, it didn't take much for me to be happy or content. But that bat really became my pride and joy for the next several years, and I'm sure my dad was overwhelmed by the joy I exuded when receiving it. He gave of his best for me, and I'll always treasure that moment. Even though Joseph was put through quite the whirlwind, answering God's call to stay with Mary and dealing with an unfortunately smelly housing situation that night in Bethlehem, I believe the gift that he received from God was worth all the hassle. God asked Joseph, a good and faithful servant, to hold out his hands in faith, and in return, he received the most precious gift imaginable, God's best, the chance to care for his son, God's son. I hope you all will be willing to hold out your hands this season and experience the joy of receiving the gift of Christ's overwhelming and never-ending love.